Thank you so much. So welcome everybody. Can everybody hear me? Can you just wave at me if you can hear me? Okay, thank you. That's wonderful. Okay, so we are just going to begin by coming into some sitting together. So I see some of you may be lying down and not feeling so well. So whatever posture, whatever comfort you can find for yourself right now, please just help yourself establish your body in some comfort and ease. If it feels appropriate for you to sit upright, that's absolutely fine. If you need to lie down, that's completely fine too. So all practice really, as we know, rests on our ability to arrive inside ourselves into our eternal, internal and eternal experience, to drop in, to come into a embodied sense of ourselves, embodied sense of presence. So really just taking some time together to come in, take some breaths, close your eyes if that's helpful to you. We know that the Buddha points us clearly towards the path leading to freedom, the understandings we are seeking to discover. That inquiry and path and place of freedom is to be found within, is to be found inside what he calls this fathom-long body. So just a real invitation to arrive. Wherever you are, whatever time of day it is. I might notice that my mind is fairly calm and settled into the body. I might notice that it takes some time for my mind to settle in. So just giving the mind time to catch up with the body, to land into the body, to arrive. Taking some extra breaths if that's helpful. Remembering always that the breath is here as an anchor, anchoring us into the present moment, into the here and now, into our embodied realities. We breathe until we die, and then we breathe no more. I may find it helpful to just pay some attention to the state of my nervous system. Noticing if I am agitated, maybe breathing and offering kindness to our inner experience, helping ourselves to settle and deepen, to land. If I find I am distracted, remembering the breath as an anchor, that most useful tool to guide me back in. And seeing if it's possible to open up to how it is right now, to really allow and expand into the experience of being me in this moment, welcoming in my experience, just allowing it to come and be felt and known. However it is, whatever is happening inside me, pleasant or unpleasant, just really inviting myself to arrive, my experience to unfold. One of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is to let ourselves be known and seen. So just seeing if I can really come into relationship to my experience, to how it is to be me right now, to everything that is happening. If there is pain or emotion, grief, just allowing that, not pushing anything away. Not forcing anything, steadying in the light of awareness. Yeah, just staying in this present experience, all that I am, all that has happened, all the factors of my life. And just an invitation to just ask yourself this question and to just meet the question, see how it lands. Don't think about it particularly, just let it resonate in and see if a response comes or not. And the question is, am I free? Am I free? Am I really free? There may be a follow-up question for you, which is, what is it that may stop me being free? What inhibits freedom? What inhibits freedom? Just remembering that for a moment. ask myself, when do I know that I am free? When do I know that I am free? And what supports this? What encourages this? What helps this? If some answers come, or some feelings, or some knowing, just also just storing that, just remembering it a little. What supports me to be free? What helps and encourages freedom? And finally, I invite us to turn our attention to the Sangha, to open out my awareness, expand into this group of people meeting now, and out into the communities we know, out into the world. Expanding out, I can ask, can we all be free? Can we all be free? What supports that? and whether some answer comes about our collective freedom or not, it may be helpful just to end the sitting with just extending out some metta into the vastness of humanity, including ourselves, and knowing that we can at least wish for freedom and extend our loving kindness and compassion to ourselves and all beings in all the suffering and the joy that is unfolding. Thank you, everybody. So just taking some moments to come out of the sitting, if you wish to move the body a little and take some breaths and open your eyes if you wish. So I'm just going to talk a little bit, and then we're going to open up the space for some Q&A. So I just wanted to reflect on these questions a little bit myself. To me, freedom, individually, personally, and collectively, feels like such an important, such a profoundly necessary subject of inquiry. Feels at the heart of the Buddha's teachings, as we know, and I love this word, liberation. Liberation internal, and the hope and the practice and the service towards liberation for all beings, whatever that might mean. So if I turn around and ask myself, am I free? Sometimes just the question itself, it just kind of stops me for a minute. It just stops me in my tracks a little bit. It just opens up sometimes this space of freedom. I see somebody's just put up something about the war in Israel. So how can we seek freedom in the midst of these conditions, in the midst of these wars and conflicts, inner and outer? How can we find a kind of compassionate and liberated response? Where is the space for freedom? It's hard for us to be free. It's hard for people to be free because of external conditions. It's hard to speak of freedom in the middle of a war. It's hard for us to be free just as ourselves. Yeah. And I work as a psychotherapist, and people come into the therapy room seeking freedom from their conditions, seeking freedom to be more fully themselves, to be more fully alive, to suffer less, to grow and expand. It's hard for us to be free. It's hard for us to be free sometimes because our inner worlds are so complex, so overwhelmed at times. Many of us live in states of strong overwhelm. We live in states of heightened nervous system responses to our environment. We live in states of grief and loss. So we can see, we know, it's clear that to be free, I must come into relationship to myself, to my self processes, to the processes of my inner world. If I ask myself, what stops me being free? The obvious answer, the clearest answer is really, it's me that stops me being free. It's Jonny that stops Jonny being free. So then I have to ask myself, how do I help Jonny stop himself from stopping himself being free? Yeah. And we know that that's got a lot to do with our early experiences for some people, or our traumas, our pain and difficulty that we may carry from our earliest experiences, that the power of our early experiences can dominate the reality of our lives, the experience of living. And we know it's hard to see through this. We know that it's hard to see beyond this, that this kind of dominating conditioning factor can entirely color the perception of the world. We know it's hard enough sometimes to live in difficult external conditions, money and conflict and difficulty, climate emergency. These things are real. It's harder still with really difficult internal conditions. So it feels clear, doesn't it, that part of the path towards freedom must involve coming into relationship to myself, to my patterns, to my traumas, to my overwhelms, and finding a way to settle them, finding a way to be with them, finding a way to live that is less overwhelmed by my own internal conditioning. We can see this. So practice involves this kind of compassion and this relational kindness and relational attunement to ourselves, to our histories, to our wounding. And so it's really important for us to come into a loving and kind and clear relationship to ourselves, to our patterns. Often for many of us, when we begin to do that, we can see very clearly that our worlds inside ourselves are very fragmented, very split up, and sometimes dominated by very cruel internal voices, very harsh, superegoic self-criticism. And we can see very clearly that it's very difficult to feel free and to feel free to love and engage in the world when parts of ourselves, parts of our beings are attacking ourselves, are putting ourselves down, are criticizing ourselves, are limiting ourselves. And so working with these kind of voices, these kind of superegoic, self-critical parts of ourselves, is clearly very, very important if we have any hope as kind of moving down the path towards freedom. So major encouragement to us all to soften around these voices, to let them go somewhat, these places that are seeking, if we understand them, to protect us from the world. Often these critical voices are born from protective functions, parts of ourselves that are scanning, are vigilant for danger. They are looking out for things which are unsafe, because maybe when we were young, things were unsafe. Maybe they were. And so these parts have developed to try and protect ourselves, to seek out, look out for, and close down our experience so that we don't get hurt. But they're not helpful when we're adults. They become like a kind of prison that we're caught up in. So a lot of attention in practice towards really seeing these voices. And I know Martin on Sangha Live is running his course that's around looking at the inner critic. And it's such an important part of practice. And if we keep following that a little bit, we can see that, the Buddha and Buddhism and Buddhist practice and therapy as well points us to some understanding that a huge part of what really kind of constricts our experience, what impinges our potential, what closes down the lived experience of our lives, is this thing that we call the self, is our conditioned response, particularly to our early environments. This attempt to manage living, of which the superego can be a big part. Many of us have many parts that are trying to manage this complex thing of being alive. And so Buddhist practice really encourages us to try and untangle the self, to really go into it. And this is where therapy can be of huge help, to really go into the self and untangle its processes and to seek some kind of space within this process of living, seek some kind of grounds, seek some kind of freedom. And one of the things that you start to realize when you work with clients and oneself over the years of practice is that many of us have a kind of self-structure which is very inhibited, actually, very closed down, very defended. That ourselves are seeking to close down the experience of living out of fear. That may be justified from our pasts. Many of us are seeking to protect this self thing that we have, to try and avoid rejection, try and avoid disintegration, try and avoid death ultimately. And that this self can be extremely limited. And so actually, sometimes in therapy, you spend a lot of time with people helping themselves to establish a more empowered sense of themselves. That it sounds paradoxical because Buddhism asks us to let go of ourselves. We might think that that means, I don't know what we might think that might means, but often for people, there's a lot of work goes into helping people do things like have boundaries, helping people say no, helping people go, that is not good for me. I am not putting up with that. Helping people empower their sense of being. You can feel in that a lot of work goes into metabolizing and transforming what can be quite a closed down sense of anger into a more empowered and strong and clear sense of boundary, a sense of like a separation, like I am here and I have some kind of autonomy over my own experience. It's very important. Yeah. Many of us have selves that are kind of, they're orientated actually around the other, around taking care of the other, because maybe we had to do that as young children. We had to take care of these people that we grew up with. Yeah. And so many of us hear teachings of compassion, and it can kind of collude a little bit with that sense of I am here to just look after everybody, and we run patterns that seem to take care of everything, but actually just burn ourselves out. They just burn ourselves out, and we find ourselves resentful and angry and tired. So there's something about trying to understand myself here, trying to understand the patterns that I come in with. And if I'm seeking some kind of freedom, I need to understand the way that I am orientated in relationship to the other, to the world. And it's not always clear that I don't need to be a bit stronger, a bit more resilient, to be able to say no, like I've said. Yeah. It might be clearer that I need to allow myself to let go, to really allow myself to feel fear, expand, take risk, to open up. I think we all probably agree that if there is a kind of pathing towards freedom, it must be to do with being able to let go. And that at its root, really, it is fear that causes us to contract. It is fear which causes us to cling on. So paradoxically, sometimes more self is a freer self. That's not in a kind of egotistical way, not in a kind of, I need to be a bigger personality, a bigger me, this kind of stuff. But actually, something about I need to be able to be more empowered, more clear, more sure, more directed. Yeah. I need to maybe apologize less for who I am. Not always, because sometimes I'm an asshole and I need to apologize for that. Right. But somewhere inside myself, there can be so much guilt and shame about who I am, so much sense of badness, so much sense of like, I'm just not allowed to be. Yeah. There's something about our culture, maybe, I don't know. It's hard to know what other cultures were like in previous places and points in history. But there is seemed to be something about our culture. It's so confusing. It's so bewildering. And and I don't know if this is true or not, but I was reading a book a while ago, which is about many things, including pre-Columbian civilization in North and South America. And it talks about this tribe. I think they're called the Wendat or something. Apologies if that's wrong. And they lived up around the Great Lakes. And of course, we don't really know how it was to be in that tribe because we only have the reports of the missionaries and people who came into contact with that tribe. But it seems that the central feature of that tribe, the central it was a kind of collection of a federation of tribes. The central value of the tribe was, roughly speaking, nobody does anything they don't want to do. Can you imagine? Can you imagine living in that? That's the central feature of your civilization. Nobody does anything they don't want to do. So it's sort of like quite awakening invite when I read that to kind of look at myself and go, like, how much of my life am I doing things that I don't actually want to do? It's complicated. We know it's complicated, right? Because there appear to be a lot of things that we have to do that we might not want to do, like pay our taxes. Yeah. But it's a really interesting question. Yeah. Like, maybe let's just have a little think about it right now together. What am I doing in my life that I really, really don't want to be doing? And is there any choice about that? Sometimes there isn't, but quite often there is. Hmm. We're doing this in one of our groups at our training institute over the weekend. And somebody, after talking about this, I think they went home and fired loads of their clients. Yeah. And they were just like, why am I doing this? Yeah. Why am I involved in these relationships which are not good for me? And again, I know it's complex. I know life isn't that simple, but it's a very empowering question to put to yourself. What am I doing that I really, really don't want to be doing? And is there a way I could just stop doing it and be free from this? And I guess we all know that, well, I know in the Wendat, apparently, they all had to spend a lot of time talking together. Because if the basic premise of the civilization is nobody does anything they don't want to do, it's quite difficult for anything to actually get done. Right? So there has to be quite a lot of talk about how do we all come together and do some stuff if everybody can just do whatever they want. Because actually the teachings also, they point us to some truth, no? That even if we are completely free, even if whatever that might mean for you, to be just completely free, you can imagine that. I'm just going to be completely free. Whatever that might mean. The teachings clearly point us towards the fact that that doesn't take us anywhere. It doesn't drop us out of anything. It doesn't land us somewhere else. We're just here. And I guess hopefully, being freer really means being more fully here. Right? If I'm free from my self patterns, from my inhibitions, from my anxieties and my loneliness, I become freer to be here. I don't go anywhere. I just become more fully here, fully present. Yeah. I'm free to engage. Really, I'm free to open up to experience, to really dwell in reality, to allow it. As I think Martin talks beautifully about the qualities of love that the Buddha describes in the Brahma Viharas, and particularly the quality of upekkha, or equanimity, as a quality of love. And what this does, this kind of really deep, open, still, vast steadiness, is it just allows everything to arise. It doesn't need to defend itself from anything. Yeah. So it may be that to help myself arrive more fully here, I need to start saying no to a whole load of stuff. Fine. And it may be that I really need to inquire into this thing about what am I doing in my life that really, really isn't allowing me, is really impinging my freedom, that I don't really want to be doing. And it may be that we can inquire deeply into how can I really open myself up to this business of being alive, to the experience of it. Yeah. And that requires us to face fear, as we know, to face fear, many levels of fear. It requires us to let go, no? To let go. And what we find is that the more we let go, we actually find ourselves in a deeper and deeper and deeper relationship to reality, into a more and more intimate relationship with reality. We don't end up alone. We end up fully interconnected, fully affected by reality. Yeah, which means actually paradoxically in a kind of deeper and deeper relationship to the suffering of others, to the suffering of others. So someone's just said it is liberating. Yeah, it is liberating, but it is liberating to be able to open to the suffering of the world, because there's a lot of it and we are in trouble. We know that. Yeah. It's hard to develop the capacity to really feel the suffering of the world. So freedom and intimacy to me seem to be really connected. They seem to be really related. But actually, if I really think about what freedom is, there is this kind of incredible paradox of just being completely free. I'm completely free. I don't have to. I mean, I wish I could live like this, but I don't. But in the moment, I wish I could be completely free to just do whatever I want to do, be whoever I want to be. If I really think about what the deepest wishes and intentions of that might be, it might be to deeply be with you. to open up and deeply be with you and the suffering. And we know that engaging with the suffering of the world is important, that it's important for us to consider our personal freedom, and it's important for ourselves to consider everybody's freedom. And what on earth does that mean? Yeah? Like, how can we all find liberation? And what does that mean? I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but it feels really, really important to keep asking the question. That part of freedom is individual, but part of freedom is collective. It's collective. It's the Sangha. It's about waking up together. And that feels important. I think that's probably always been important. It's important as we enter into the climate emergency, as we know, because we are entering into a collective phase of global experience that requires global and collective responses, whatever that might be. Okay, I think that might be me. So that leaves us perfectly half an hour to see if there are any questions or anything anybody has to say. So maybe before we do that, a couple of things before we do that. One is I've been asked just to briefly reiterate the thing around dana. So just to say that, as we said, this is a free teaching, and just if it would be possible to just find a way. I mean, suppose generosity is also connected to the path of freedom. Generosity requires me to trust and let go and give and believe it will be okay. And I'm not saying that towards me particularly, but I am saying it for the platform, for Sangha Live, which supports the livelihood of many great people like your lovely host. So if there's a way that you could help support your host more than me, it would be much, much, much appreciated. Thank you. And then maybe before we begin the questions, maybe it's just worth just pausing a little bit and let's just return to our central question, right? Which is like, am I free? And kind of, if not, why not? So maybe just give yourself a little bit of time with that. Am I free? And if not, why not? And if you want to get complicated, you could ask yourself, what is freedom? Okay, so any questions? If there's no questions, that's fine. We can just sit here in peaceful silence.
So there is a question, if I could relay it for a person.
Yeah.
This person's asking, could you elaborate a bit on the concept of needing rather than wanting, and what I want is not always what I need?
Oh, blimey. Look, the questions of not doing anything that I want is somewhat provocative, right? Because it gets us into a whole tangle of stuff around who I really am, what's my deepest wanting. I can be quite arrogant with that. I'm not doing anything that I don't want to do. So these kind of questions about what I want and what I need are for your inquiry, aren't they? They are very important. I mean, lots of people struggle, I think, to even allow them. I mean, I speak personally. I really struggle to allow myself to have needs, full stop. Yeah. So I might not want to be looked after by somebody else at certain levels, because I really struggle to own that I need to be looked after by anybody. So if I follow the inquiry, I might find out that what I really want is to be looked after, to be taken care of by the people around me. And I'm very defended against it. So I don't think there's really a kind of split between those things. It's a kind of linguistic thing. It's for your inquiry to kind of really deepen in and look into yourself and see what your wants and needs really, really, really are. I would say something like that. Thank you. So there's some hands up, yeah? Am I going to do that, or are you going to do that? Am I? How do I do that?
You can call the name and I will bring them on for you.
Okay, so I can't see very well anymore. So I can see someone called Alice who looks like they're on a beach.
That's where I aim to be one day. But no, this is a really intriguing topic, and I think it just ties in with something that I'd been talking to with a group that I meet with every day. Funny enough, this morning, so it ties. Everything seems to tie in. My question is, what practical things can you do to actually start giving yourself the permission to be free and actually not have it just as a theoretical concept, but actually do it? You know what I mean? Actually do things so that you are free day to day. Just like tips throughout the day that you can start employing, and then they become habit. So you do create an inner like chamber of freedom, even though you're in the world and there's lots of push and pull from different areas, lots of influences, the media and so on and so forth, external factors. But how do you maintain that inner freedom so it's almost as if you're floating above the parapet, really? Like what do?
I mean, what came up for me as you were talking was something about, I mean, I don't know why I thought of this, so I'll just go with it. But what came up for me was actually an image there of, and this might be romanticized, right? But an image of the monks at the time of the Buddha, right? Working with the next step, like mindfulness of the next step, mindfulness of the foot rising and falling onto the next step. And so then maybe there's something there, right? About is my next step free? Right. And that kind of brings in a lot of this personal stuff, doesn't it? It's like, am I walking into the place I want to be walking into? You know, am I really doing that? Am I really like this thing that I do called work? Right? I walk into this building maybe, or I switch this computer on. That's my next step. Yeah. Am I free in that? Right. This thing that's right in front of me. And then kind of inquiring into myself in that, right? So really kind of being deeply mindful of myself in that moment and just really asking the question, do I want to be doing this? Do I need to be doing this? Is this freedom? Yeah. In each and every single step. That's what came to me, because it feels like we can get lost in all that outer stuff and all these ideas. But there is something about this actual moment. We all know, don't we, that freedom is in this moment. It can't be anywhere else. It has to be right here, right now. We know that. Yeah. So that is the place to explore it, to inquire into it, this very next breath and step. And does that help?
It does help. It does help. It's just, I think sometimes it's how you think you made a really good point about freedom being in this present moment. It's true. It's not in the past. It's not in the future. It's in this moment. I find that personally with myself, I tend to kind of plan a lot for what I need to be doing because I'm quite busy. But then with stuff that's happened in the past where it might be a bit of a sensitive topic or whatever, I'll find myself from time to time going back there and just trying to make sense of it. And then in that, I'm not free because I'm stuck in a reality that doesn't exist anymore, apart from in my mind. So I I guess I am preventing the freedom, but then how do I stop that kind of wanting to it's almost like wanting to just wanting to get a better understanding of what happened, why it happens. I guess for me to know, so that I have the tools, so if it's something that I don't want to happen again, I can have the tools so that it doesn't happen again, because maybe the experience wasn't something that I'd really choose to participate in. But yeah, it's just, but then you can get lost in that rumination or in that reflection. It's not, as you know, the life is the present moment. This is all that we have, really.
Yeah.
So
But I wouldn't, you sound like you're on it, right? It's like the present moment is full of these past experiences, right? So really this inquiry just takes us right into the heart of everything. It's true that sometimes we need to spend time with the past, right? We really, really do, because if we don't, like you say, I may be opened myself up to abuse in the past, right? Or no fault of mine, right? I really need to understand that, yeah, so that I know how not to do that again. Like I really, really do. I need to go in, but all that stuff is present right now, yeah. So if I'm really going into the present, I can go into that stuff with confidence that I won't get lost in it, yeah. And maybe sometimes therapy is really helpful for that inquiry, right? And it's like it's not about the present moment, doesn't mean not inquiring into who I am and my patterns. It means really inquiring into that fully, full-bloodedly, and trusting that freedom will emerge in that inquiry.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it is maybe looking at the past in order to
The past is just here. Yeah.
In order to navigate the present moment, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for saying that I'm on the right path, because I know sometimes with myself, I'm realizing I guess I can be a little bit hard on myself when really there has been progress, but yeah, it's always, I think it's the way a little bit. So I'm learning to just be a bit more gentle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank
Sounds
you.
great. We're also hard on ourselves. It's unbelievable, Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the messages in the chat as well. Yeah.
Okay, so I can't see anyone. Anna?
Hi, Jonny.
Hi.
Thank you very much for having me today here. It's absolute pleasure to be part of this. Thank you so much. So you said so much, and I think we can discuss this for hours and hours and hours on end, because it's so complex, isn't it? And there's so many points have been raised, and they're just so deep. I feel like hour and a half is just not enough. So from my experience and what I have discovered, I went through a spiritual rebirth that started in October last year. And so what I actually learned and realized going through, deep dives and forcing myself just to kind of look into my shadows and really being really determined to kind of heal and liberate myself from suffering. I think that freedom is so individual. We can't really put a finger on it. It always changes. It's really fluid. It's kind of, for me, when I experience freedom is when I do healing work. When I reach the stage, I think that was a couple of weeks ago, when certain shame and guilt was shown to me again, this kind of voice in your head bombarding you, and I said, you have nothing on me. I forgive myself for everything. I'm not gonna be chained with this invisible chain, to that shame, to that guilt, to that anger, I'm gonna look at it because I want all my particles, you know, my this kind of scattered souls back, and I'm gonna forgive them. I'm gonna look at them with kindness and compassion, and you have nothing on me to keep me chained, to keep me in prison anymore. And that's when I truly kind of experience this deep, it's felt experience, it's this embodied experience of freedom,
Mm,
you know.
right.
So I think it's really individual for many people, but I think it must be connected with the willingness to heal, to really look at all these aspects of a life um, where, you know, we felt shame or guilt for what we've done, what we haven't done, what's been done to us, haven't been done to us. Really kind of look into it and not shy away from it, and just say, bring it on. Bring it on. Let's look at it. Let's deal with it. I'm not carrying it anymore. It's not mine to carry. I'm liberating myself. It's like this kind of intention. I want to be free from it.
Right.
So there's this kind of internal freedom. That's societal freedom is a little bit difficult because we all have to pay our bills at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes this societal programming is a little bit tricky. But the way I deal with it, I would just say to myself, you know what? I'm a divine being. I'm just so grateful to have this experience, you know, really short experience that we all have in my body. I'm gonna trust the process, and everything is good, you know. It's hard sometimes, but you know, sometimes what helps me is having this kind of inner groundedness, you know, with the Mother Earth and with me, and knowing that I am actually a powerful being. I have a choice. I can make a decision. I'm a capable person to kind of guide myself through life. So sometimes that helps a little bit.
Sounds totally brilliant to me. Sounds great. Thank you so much. There's this one thing I thought of when you were talking, which I loved what you were saying. And I don't know, this bit came to me about shame. Yeah, about shame, how much we pick up shame from, yeah. And I love the teaching. This, it's like a little anecdote almost within Buddhism. And it's about when somebody came to the Buddha and was like really angry with him, right? He was shaming the Buddha, basically. He was attacking the Buddha, and he was saying, you know, who do you think you are? And you're blah, 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 right? And so the Buddha says, hang on a minute to this guy, hang on a minute, hang on. And he says to him, listen, when you go to people's houses, do you take a present? Right? Do you take a present? And in India, you know, if you visit somebody's house, you have to take a present, right? It's part of the culture. And the guy goes, yeah, of course I take a present. And then the Buddha says, and do you open the present? And the guy says, yeah, of course I open the presents. And roughly speaking, the Buddha says, well, you are giving me the present of anger, and it stands for shame. You are giving me the present of shame. You are giving me the present of anger. You are giving me the present of attack or abuse. And I choose not to open it. I choose not to open it. I choose not to open it. I choose not to pick it up. Yeah, this is such a profound teaching for us. Yeah, it's such a liberating teaching that I do not have to open up the present of shame. I don't have to open it. Like you said, I can just let it go. Yeah, I can really feel it inside myself, heal it, just let it go and not pick it up from the outside. Yeah. Thank you. That was lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you. So we have Mary Louise. Hi.
Hi, Jonny. Hi. Yeah, when you dropped that question in about what stops us from being free, immediately what came to me was the need to protect myself. And I was just, and underneath that is the need to feel safe. So there is a need there, right? And needs are important to honor and respect. But how does the honoring and respecting of the need, how does that go with, becoming free? So, for example, if you don't feel safe with somebody and you need to feel safe in order to open your heart, for example, then it would be unwise to open your heart, right? It would be unwise to open in a situation where you're not feeling safe.
Yeah.
So I'm struggling a little bit with this like opening up and closing down thing, like when you don't feel safe, one closes down. But what I imagine is freedom is like, being able to open and remain connected even somehow. So there's a bit of a question I'm trying to formulate here about the freedom, becoming free, to remain open, to connect, not to self-protect, but at the same time respecting and honoring need.
Yeah.
I'm just like trying to piece it together, like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great question, right? And that's what I was trying to say earlier. It's like, if, many of us, right, suffer from kind of conditioning, right, which makes us feel beholden to the other. Yeah, I'm beholden to the other. I have to. It's impolite, especially here in England. It's impolite to say to somebody, "No, I'm not doing that." Yeah, I'm not doing it. It's impolite for us to say somebody is asking us or requiring us to do something that just doesn't feel right, right? And maybe many of us spend a lot of our lives, I'm not saying you, but loads of us spend many of our lives inside relationships which do not feel good. Yeah, that don't feel good. Many of us need to understand, therefore, the nature of our particular conditioning. Many of us have particular conditioning which makes it very difficult for us to just walk away from something. Yeah, to just say no. So if I'm feeling unsafe, yeah, and I'm feeling this isn't right for me, then perhaps freedom is to do with going, well, then I'm going over there. Sorry, see you later. Yeah, perhaps freedom is to do with going, well, I'm out. I'm not doing this, right? So perhaps freedom, the openness there is to my right, as it were, yeah, my permission to just not do something. Yeah. And that can be very, very liberating for people. Of course, it's incredibly complicated sometimes, and there's all sorts of complexities, but it's like many of us really struggle to just go, nah, see you later, I'm out, right? Or to go, no, sorry. So actually, if you kind of follow that inquiry sometimes, yeah, it's true that safety and freedom must be connected. Like, it's no good. Freedom is not about harming myself, right? Freedom has to be connected to taking deep care of myself. Like, those things must come in together, right? And I must understand, where is my fear really happening? And often my fear is happening around this inhibition, this kind of difficulty in just saying, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah. And so actually, like I say, like this happens a lot in therapy. You spend a lot of time with people just helping them say no, because they weren't allowed to do that as children. They said no, and somebody just slapped them down, maybe literally. Yeah. They tried to express something about their needs, and that was just shut down, maybe forcefully, right? Little children try to communicate what they really want or don't want, and that's just overridden. Yeah. So freedom can be right in that mix there of inquiring inside myself as to what is my truth, as best I can find it. It's complicated, but as best I can find it. And then what is the freedom, right? So it might not look like a kind of I'm opening up man to everybody man sort of thing, right? It might look to other people like I'm being quite selfish, but inside myself, I know that I'm actually doing something new here, something freeing, something important that maybe for some of us, for the first time, is really, 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 I'm taking the freedom to take care of myself. Yeah, to look after myself, to go, no more abuse. I'm not doing it. Yeah.
I noticed this, part that's saying, yeah, but if I wasn't so traumatized, I wouldn't have the need to feel so safe.
Yeah.
Or the need to be so self-protective.
Yeah. So great. So this is another bit of it, is how to heal those traumas and establish kind of resilience and establish inner ground, which is often connected to saying no. And just really beginning to kind of find that trust in my basic experience, especially when there's a lot of trauma, so important. And that takes a lot of work on both dealing with the pain and also putting attention into where I feel well and safe and clear, and growing those parts of my experience. Really like going, I really feel clear in these spaces. I really feel okay with these people in this kind of circumstance. And I'm going to cultivate that and grow it. Yeah, I'm going to trust, because then what I'm beginning to trust is my capacity, my experience, my capacity to drop deeper and deeper into experience. And saying no is a very important part of that. Listening to my needs, taking care of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. That was a great answer.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Top marks. Thank you.
How are we doing? Is there any more?
There were some comments in the chat that I don't know if there was actually questions and inquiries inside of them. So if anyone had put something in the chat they would like a response on, please maybe raise your hand. You don't have to come on camera, but you could ask your question directly. But there is one I can see. What was the book you mentioned?
About the Wendat. It's called, is that the one? It's called The Dawn of Everything by somebody and somebody. I can't remember who they are. It's a slightly controversial book on prehistory, but it's kind of interesting. And what it's particularly interesting on, if I would just say, is the idea that we can have that the West is all about individualism. And the book is somewhat saying that's not really true, that many like pre-Columbian tribes, for example, had very, very powerful narratives of individual freedom in them. Yeah, someone's put it in the chat. Thank you, the authors. So I think we've got another, couple of minutes? So if there's nothing else, we can just sit together. Should we do that? It's hard for me to see if there's even anybody left, but if there is anybody left, shall we just sit together and just let go of everything, of the talk, and So maybe just some little attention at the end in breathing out, letting go. Trusting our capacity to just drop away into the vastness of awareness, like someone suggested in the chat, just the ultimate free space. And so I can see a little comment that's just come up in the chat. So just, it's no time to respond to it, but just compassion and understanding to the difficulties of these processes. Compassion to all of ourselves. I'd like to say a little special thank you to people that attended from the Karuna community here. It's lovely to see some of you pop up. I think we're at the end, are we? Yeah.
I really want to thank you. There's a lot of love coming into the chat for you and appreciation for your teaching and the topic.
Thank you.
I'm
That's
going to
great.
remove your spotlight so we can go into gallery view again.
Yeah.
And be with each other here as we all say thank you, bid adieu. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe just there's some intention here. Just if you can see, I don't know how many people you can see, you can scroll a little bit through the gallery and see people. Some people have their cameras on and off, but if you want to just pop in and just say hello, just let yourself seen, you're very, very welcome before we go.
Sending love to everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much,
Thank you.
Switzerland.
Thank you.
Thank
Farewell.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Peace and gratitude.
Bye bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Johnny. It's too late.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, everyone. Very good. Oh, we still got our thing on. We still got. Oops.
Hi, Emma.
Bye, Johnny. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Johnny.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good.